many nights over this. Finally, I have reached my decision. There is no reason for me to delay the pain for both of us, and pain there will surely be when I tell you what is in my heart. I think it would be best for all involved if I move back in with my father." I read that last sentence again and again. I doubt this will truly come as a surprise to you. You know that we have not been in love, as husband and wife must be, for some time now. My hand was shaking now. The paper began to rattle and my eyes burned. I rested my head back against my chair. "I'm still in love, Meg," I said out loud. "I have prayed much about this matter and have spoken to my father about the situation." I should have known. Meg had consulted the one God in her life, the almighty Colonel Wilford A. Haverbrook, U.S. Army retired. No doubt the colonel had agreed with her that her husband was a miserable failure. "I know that my decision may strike you as a terrible mistake on my part, yet I believe it is the only correct solution to our dilemma. We must be honest with each other and ourselves. I think it best if you do not come home at this time. I will be in touch with you by post or wire as I begin the steps necessary to bring about a most painful but inevitable result. Cordially, your wife, Meg." I have often heard the expression, "It hit him like a punch in the stomach," but I had never felt it myself. Suddenly I knew exactly what it meant. The letter struck me a blow that caused a physical ache so sharp I had to bend over. Then I sat up. Perhaps I'd missed a word or an entire sentence and reversed the meaning of the thing. I grabbed the letter and read it again. I read it out loud. Eventually, I turned it over and found another message scrawled on the back in pencil, a child's handwriting. "Daddy, me and Alice miss you terrible. Just terrible. Please come home soon as you can. I love you. Your daughter, Amelia." And that is when I felt my heart break. Chapter 45. I poured cold water from the pitcher into the basin, then washed my face with the coarse brown soap, scrubbing so hard I threatened to take the skin off. Next, I took a sheet of writing paper from my valise, along with a pen Meg had given me for the first anniversary of our marriage, a beautiful Waterman pen. I pulled the wobbly chair up to the wobbly table and uncapped the pen. Immediately, I felt all my lawyerly eloquence disappear. "Dear Meg, as your husband and your friend, I must tell you that you have some things wrong. I do love you. You are simply wrong to say that I don't. A separation like this is a rash thing to do, especially considering that we have never even discussed these problems face to face. I don't care about your father's opinion of our marriage, but I do care that our parting will break the hearts of everyone involved. Alice, Amelia, my own heart, even yours. Before you take any further action, please, my darling Meg, we must discuss this together as husband and wife, as mother and father of our 2 little daughters, as Meg and Ben, who always planned to spend our lives together." Suddenly I came out of my writing trance. "Mr. Corbett? Mr. Corbett!" It was Maybelle, hollering from the foot of the stairs. I quickly wrote, "Your loving and faithful husband, Ben." "Mr. Corbett?" I put down the pen and walked out to the landing. "What is it, Maybelle?" I called. "Mrs. Nottingham is here to see you. She's here on the porch. She's waiting on you, Mr. Corbett. Hurry!" Chapter 46. There Elizabeth was, standing on Maybelle's wide wraparound porch. She had put on another bonnet and seemed even more attractive than she'd been this morning. She reached out for my hand. "I came to apologize, Ben." I took her hand. "What do you mean? Apologize for what?" I said this for the benefit of Maybelle, whom I could see lingering in the parlor, trying not to be observed. "Let's go look at Miss Maybelle's rose garden," I proposed. "It's in full bloom this time of year." I made a motion with my eyes that disclosed my real meaning to Elizabeth. She nodded and followed me around the porch toward the backyard. Maybelle's roses were actually in sad shape, a few blossoms drooping among a profusion of weeds. "I'm sorry for this morning," Elizabeth said, "the way I ran off." "You didn't run. You walked." "I watched your every step," I said, and smiled. "You can still be funny, Ben." "Sit on the bench," I said. "I won't bite you." Smoothing her dress, she sat on the stained marble bench amid the raggedy roses. Sitting close to her, I was fascinated by her every gesture, word, movement. I noticed the way Elizabeth touched her mouth with the knuckle of her second finger, giving herself a little kiss before coming out with an opinion. And the slow southern musical rhythm of her speech. Lord, what was getting into me? Probably just loneliness. Or was it being rejected by my wife? "You were surprised I came to see you again so soon?" she said. "I'm always glad to see you, Elizabeth," I said, then added, "Yes, I'm surprised you're here." "I do have an ulterior motive," she said. "We're having a luncheon after church on Sunday. Will you come?" "We?" "Richard and I." "Sure, I'll come," I replied. I caught the faint scent of rose water, and I noted the curve of her nose, and remembered being very young and in love with that little nose. "Wonderful," she was saying. "Come about 1, Ben. We'll have some nice people in. I'll try not to have any of those you were subjected to at LJ's. She stood. "I can't be late picking up Emma from her lesson. She's quite the little pianist, and I guess I'm quite the doting mother." She stood, and we smiled. This time there was no kiss on the cheek. But I watched Elizabeth walk away again, every step, until she finally disappeared behind the rooming house porch. Chapter 47. Washington, D.C. That same afternoon, Senator John Tyler Morgan, Democrat of Alabama, stood in the lobby of the Willard Hotel yelling at the general manager. "I have never been refused service in my life. That insufferable man in the elevator had the nerve to tell me he was holding the car for an important personage. He told me to get off that car and wait for another car." Senator Morgan was so angry that specks of saliva were speckling the lapels of the general manager's morning coat. "Senator, I am so sorry for the inconvenience." "Not an inconvenience. It's a goddamned insult. Who the hell was he holding the elevator for? The goddamn President of the United States?" As he roared this question, the great glass doors of the lobby flew open at the hands of 2 uniformed guards. In walked Theodore Roosevelt. He took one look at John Tyler Morgan in mid-rampage and the poor little cowering manager. Then Roosevelt thundered, "Unless my eyes deceive me, the man at the center of that ruckus is none other than the senior senator from the great state of Alabama. Good morning, John." The famous Civil War general and Southern statesman was stunned into silence. No one had called him John in many years. "Morning, Mr. President," he finally managed to say. "Come, ride the elevator with me, John." A few minutes later, having deposited the red-faced Morgan on his floor, Roosevelt had a good laugh at his expense. "And the newspapers call me a gas bag. Senator Morgan, my friends, is the royal and supreme emperor of gas bags. Did you see how quickly I deflated him simply by using his Christian name?" Appreciative laughter from his aides trailed the president to his suite. Roosevelt grew serious the moment he passed through the door. "Good morning, Mr. President. We're all ready for your meeting," said Jackson Henson, his capable assistant. "Well, get them in here. No need to dawdle." "Yes, sir. They're on their way up in the service elevator." Roosevelt chuckled. "How did they take to that?" "I understand the gentleman was displeased," Henson said. Chapter 48. The inner door opened and a pair of adjutants appeared, escorting a distinguished-looking black man with a Van Dyke beard and a wide woman of a darker, more African appearance with a wise face and a spectacular sweep of hair that plainly was not entirely her own. Mr. Roosevelt bowed to the man and kissed the lady's gloved hand. He could never be seen doing such a thing in public, but here in private he was all too happy to pay honor to W.E.B. Du Bois, the great Negro writer and crusader, and to Ida B. Wells Barnett, the passionate anti-lynching campaigner, such a modern and audacious woman that she dared to append her husband's name to her own when she married. "My sincere apologies for the indignity of bringing you up in the back elevator," the president said. Du Bois bowed slightly. "It is not the first time I have ridden in the servants' car, Mr. President," he said. "I am fairly sure it will not be the last." Mrs. Wells Barnett perched her sizable self on the upholstered chair beside the fireplace. "Now, Mr. Du Bois," said the president, "I have received quite a lot of correspondence from you about these matters. I want you to know that my administration is doing everything within our power to see that these local authorities start observing the laws as the—" Roosevelt was surprised when Ida Wells Barnett interrupted. "That's fine, Mr. President," she said. "We already know all that. You don't have to coddle us or pour on all that old gravy. We know what you're up against. We're up against the same. White men get away with killing black men every day." Roosevelt's eyes flashed behind his spectacles. "Well, madam, I think I may be able to do something finally," he said. "That's why I agreed to this meeting." Du Bois said, "Yes, sir, but if you will try to refrain from interrupting your president," Roosevelt demanded, "I will further explain that I am taking steps right now to learn the true situation in the Deep South. Once I have all the facts, I assure you I intend to act." "I appreciate that," Du Bois said. "We're not asking for public displays any more than you are," said Wells Barnett, warming to the discussion. "As you recall, sir, when you invited Booker Washington to dine at the White House, it caused a political headache for you and accomplished absolutely nothing for the cause of colored people." "Booker T. Washington is the whitest black man I know," grumbled Du Bois. Roosevelt sat ramrod straight in a large leather armchair. Jackson Henson loomed over a tiny French desk in the corner, taking down in shorthand everything that was said. "Mr. Roosevelt, let me put this as simply as possible," said Wells Barnett. "What we have at the present time
is an epidemic of lynching in the